Businessman left stranded without interpreter, but young secretary steps in and does the unthinkable. Michael Reynolds felt sweat trickling down his forehead as he stared at the phone that had just delivered the worst possible news. The Japanese interpreter who was supposed to save his company from total bankruptcy had been in an accident and wouldn't be able to attend the most important meeting of his life. The call that changed everything came exactly 30 minutes before the Japanese investors were set to enter the conference room. Michael hung up the phone and felt as if the ground had vanished beneath his feet. "Mr. Michael, is something wrong?" asked Emily Parker, his secretary, noticing the panic that had taken over his face. "Mr. Yamada cancelled. He said he was in a car accident on his way to the office." Michael ran a hand through his dark hair, desperately searching for a solution that simply didn't exist. Emily's heart raced. She knew exactly what this meeting meant for the company and for everyone who worked there. Over the past 6 months, she had watched Michael arrive earlier and leave later each day, fighting to save the construction business he'd inherited from his father. "The Japanese investors are on their way up, sir. Reception called 2 minutes ago," she whispered, watching as he braced both hands against the desk covered in documents. "My God, Emily, without an interpreter, there's no meeting. Without the meeting, there's no investment, and without investment—" Michael couldn't finish the sentence. The words stuck in his throat. Emily looked at the man she'd met 3 years ago when she first started working at the company. Back then, he was confident, always smiling, with grand plans to expand the business. Now she saw a man crushed under the weight of responsibilities that seemed too big for him. "Mr. Michael," she said softly, stepping closer to the desk. "I can help." "How?" He looked up, his expression a mix of desperation and the faintest spark of hope. "I speak Japanese." Michael blinked several times as if he hadn't heard her correctly. "You speak what?" "Japanese, fluently," Emily repeated, her stomach fluttering. She knew this moment would change everything between them, for better or worse. "Emily, this isn't the time for jokes. The most powerful men in Japan's construction industry will be here any minute, and—" "I'm not joking, Mr. Michael. I really do speak Japanese." Dear listener, if you're enjoying the story, don't forget to like and subscribe to the channel. It helps us a lot as we're just starting out. Now back to the story. Michael stared at her for a few seconds, trying to process what she'd just said. Emily Parker, the young woman he'd known for 3 years, who had always been quiet and efficient at her job, who came from a small town in Pennsylvania, spoke Japanese. "That's impossible," he shook his head. "You told me you only had a high school diploma when you were hired." "I know, sir, and I have an explanation for that." "There's no time for explanations now, Emily. I need to cancel this meeting and try to reschedule, if they'll even give us a second chance." "Please, let me try," she insisted, placing her hand on the scattered documents. "You have nothing to lose." Michael felt a mix of desperation and curiosity. What did he have to lose at this point? His company was already practically gone. "All right," he sighed. "But if this goes wrong—" "It won't," Emily interrupted, with a determination in her voice he'd never heard before. The conference room door opened, and 3 men in suits walked in, led by Hiroshi Yamada, the lead investor. Michael's heart pounded as he stood to greet them. "Mr. Yamada, welcome," Michael said in English, extending his hand. "Mr. Reynolds," Hiroshi replied with a respectful nod. "We are eager to learn about your project." Michael glanced quickly at Emily, who had positioned herself beside him. She took a deep breath and began speaking in Japanese with such perfect pronunciation that it left everyone in the room stunned. "Mr. Yamada, on behalf of Reynolds Construction, we would like to thank you for being here today. We know you've come from very far, and we hope this meeting will be beneficial for everyone." Emily smoothly translated Michael's words before he had even spoken them. The 3 Japanese men exchanged glances, clearly surprised. Hiroshi Yamada smiled for the first time since entering the room. "Your interpreter is very skilled, Mr. Reynolds," he said in Japanese to Emily. "Arigatou gozaimasu, Mr. Yamada. Hajimemashite, watashi wa Emily Parker desu," she replied with a respectful bow. Michael felt as if he were living a dream. The young woman beside him, whom he had always seen as a dedicated but simple employee, was conversing in Japanese as if she had been born in the country. "How did you learn our language so well?" asked Ken Watanabe, one of the other investors. Emily hesitated for a moment before answering. "I had a very special teacher when I was younger," she said, offering no further details. Michael decided to take advantage of the positive atmosphere and began presenting the project. Emily translated every word precisely, explaining the technical details of constructing a residential complex that would be the largest in the region. The project includes the construction of 1,200 housing units, divided into 4 30-story towers, Michael explained, while showing the architectural plans. Emily translated perfectly, but when Hiroshi Yamada asked a specific question about the seismic resistance of the foundations, she felt a chill in her stomach. This was a technical term she had never learned. "He wants to know about the seismic resistance of the foundations," she whispered to Michael, hoping he wouldn't notice her uncertainty. "Tell him we use helical pile technology with a Class 3 seismic resistance coefficient," Michael replied softly. Emily took a deep breath and improvised, using words she had heard in other office meetings, mixing Japanese terms she knew with some technical expressions in English. "We use special piles with high resistance to earthquakes. Very high class," she said, trying to sound confident. Hiroshi Yamada tilted his head, looking confused. He asked another question in Japanese, this time more specific about technical standards. Emily felt her blood run cold. She hadn't fully understood the question and didn't know how to respond. She looked at Michael, who noticed her struggle and tried to discreetly help. "He's asking about US construction standards," Michael whispered. "We use the most modern US standards. Very safe," Emily replied in Japanese, but her voice trembled slightly. Ken Watanabe exchanged a glance with Hiroshi Yamada. Something wasn't right. The interpreter, who had started by speaking flawless Japanese, now seemed hesitant and imprecise. "Mr. Reynolds," Hiroshi said, this time in English, surprising everyone, "I'd like to ask you a question directly." Michael nearly choked. Had the man been speaking English the whole time? "Of course, Mr. Yamada," he replied, trying to hide his surprise. "Your interpreter seems very young to have such technical knowledge. Where did she study?" Emily's legs trembled. Their game had been discovered. She began, but didn't know what to say. "She studied at the University of California," Michael lied quickly, trying to protect her. "Interesting," Hiroshi smiled, "because I studied there myself many years ago. What year did she graduate?" The silence that followed was deafening. Emily and Michael exchanged glances, both knowing they had been caught in a lie. "Mr. Yamada," Emily said, finally deciding to tell the truth, "I didn't study at UC. In fact, I never studied Japanese at any university." "Where then?" "I learned by caring for an elderly Japanese woman for 5 years when I was a teenager. Her name was Akiko Yamada, and she lived in Springfield, my hometown." Hiroshi Yamada abruptly stood up from his chair, his eyes wide. "Did you say Akiko Yamada?" "Yes, sir. Mrs. Akiko. She had moved to the United States in the 60s and—" "That was my mother," Hiroshi whispered, his voice choked with emotion. The room fell completely silent. Emily felt her heart pounding so loudly, she was sure everyone could hear it. "Your mother?" she asked, barely able to believe it. "My mother moved to the United States in 1965, after my father passed away. We lost contact when I was still a child. I spent years trying to find her, but she had changed her name and—" Hiroshi stopped speaking, clearly overcome. The other 2 investors watched the scene in astonishment. "Mrs. Akiko always spoke of a son she had left behind in Japan," Emily said softly. "She showed me an old photo of a little boy. She said he had become a very important businessman. She talked about me? Every day, Mr. Yamada. She said you were the most important thing in her life and that she hoped to see you again someday." Hiroshi sat back down, his eyes brimming with tears. Michael watched the surreal scene, still trying to process everything that was happening. What was she like? How did she live? Mrs. Akiko was a very kind woman. She lived in a small, simple house near my family. My mother worked as a maid for some families in town, and that's how we met. Mrs. Akiko needed someone to help with shopping and household chores, and I volunteered. Emily paused for a moment, remembering those times. She was very lonely, Mr. Yamada. She spent hours teaching me Japanese, saying that one day I might use that knowledge for something important. She said she wanted someone to know her language and culture since she could no longer be close to her son. What happened to her? Hiroshi asked, afraid of the answer. She passed away peacefully 2 years ago, but before that, she made me promise to use the Japanese I had learned to help others. She said language was a bridge between hearts. Dear listener, if you're enjoying the story, please take a moment to like and especially subscribe to the channel. It helps us a lot as we're just starting out. Now, continuing, Hiroshi Yamada discreetly wiped his eyes and looked at Michael. Mr. Reynolds, this young woman cared for my mother in her final years. That means more to me than any construction project. Michael felt a mix of relief and confusion. The meeting had taken a completely unexpected turn. But this doesn't change the fact that you lied about her qualifications, said Ken Watanabe, the second investor. How can we trust a company that isn't honest from the start? The mood in the room shifted quickly. The emotion of the reunion through Emily gave way to the tension of business. Mr. Watanabe is right, agreed the third investor, Masao Tanaka. We need to reconsider this investment. Michael felt desperation creeping back in. He had been so close to getting what he needed, and now everything was falling apart again. Please let me explain, Emily interjected. It's not Mr. Reynolds' fault. I lied on my resume when I was hired. Why? Hiroshi asked. Because I was afraid. Fear that they wouldn't believe me. A young black woman from the countryside, no college degree. Who would believe I spoke Japanese fluently? Did you lie about your background? Michael stared at her, still processing all those revelations. Yes, Mr. Michael. I said I only had a high school diploma because I thought if I told the truth about learning Japanese from an elderly lady, you'd think I was making it up to get the job. Michael shook his head in disbelief. Emily, in 3 years of working here, you never once mentioned you spoke Japanese, not once. I was afraid of being fired. I thought if you found out I'd lied about anything on my resume, you'd lose trust in me. But why did you offer to help today? Because I saw your desperation, Mr. Michael. Because I know how much this company means to you and to all of us who work here. And because... She hesitated. Because I promised Mrs. Akiko that I'd use Japanese to help people when it was needed. Ken Watanabe crossed his arms, still skeptical. That's very touching, but it still doesn't explain why we should invest in a company where employees lie about their qualifications. With all due respect, Mr. Watanabe, Emily said in Japanese, you're right to question our honesty. But Mr. Michael didn't know about my lie. He's always been a fair and honest boss. The only dishonest person here was me, and I'm admitting that now. Michael was impressed by how Emily took full responsibility, protecting him even though it could cost her job. Besides, Emily continued, I can prove my story about Mrs. Akiko. She reached into her bag and pulled out her phone, showing some old photos. This is me with Mrs. Akiko 3 years ago, and this one was taken just a few months before she passed. Hiroshi Yamada stood up again to look at the photos more closely. In the images, a white-haired Japanese woman smiled beside a young Emily, both in a small house with a garden. It's her, he whispered. It really is my mother. In the photos, you could see the genuine affection between the two. Mrs. Akiko had a radiant smile and hugged Emily as if she were her own daughter. She always said I was like the daughter she never had, Emily explained, and I loved her like a grandmother. When she passed, I felt like I'd lost a piece of my family. Hiroshi ran his finger over the phone screen, studying every detail of the photos. My mother looked happy in these pictures. She was happy, Mr. Yamada, especially when she spoke of you. She kept a photo of you by her bedside, and every night before bed, she'd say a prayer in Japanese that you'd be reunited someday. The tears Hiroshi had been holding back finally streamed down his face. Ken and Masao watched the scene with softer expressions. You know, Hiroshi said, turning to the other investors, My mother always said the universe had mysterious ways of bringing the right people together at the right time. Mr. Yamada, Ken said respectfully, we understand your emotion, but that doesn't change the facts about the business. Actually, it does. A new voice echoed through the room. Everyone turned to see Daniel Smith, Michael's business partner, entering the meeting room with a serious expression. Daniel, you shouldn't be here, Michael said, surprised by his partner's unexpected arrival. On the contrary, Michael, I think I've arrived just in time. Daniel smiled, but there was something unsettling about that smile. What do you mean? I mean, this whole story is awfully convenient, don't you think? Daniel addressed the Japanese investors. A secretary who magically speaks Japanese and just happened to care for your mother. Daniel, what are you talking about? Michael stood up, sensing something was wrong. I'm talking about a very well-planned act, Michael. Do you really believe this simple girl from the countryside learned Japanese by taking care of an old lady? Emily felt her blood run cold. There was something in the way Daniel spoke that made her deeply uncomfortable. She has the photos, Daniel, and Mr. Yamada recognized his own mother. Photos can be forged, Michael, and anyone can claim they knew someone who has passed away. Hiroshi Yamada stood up, clearly offended. Are you implying this young woman is lying about caring for my mother? I'm implying this whole story is far too suspicious. Daniel crossed his arms. And perhaps you should reconsider doing business with a company where employees make up outlandish tales. Michael couldn't understand where Daniel was going with this. Daniel, you're being extremely disrespectful. I ask you to leave this meeting. I won't leave, Michael. Not when I'm trying to protect our company from being associated with a fraud. What fraud? Emily asked, her voice trembling. The fraud of a secretary who lies about her background, makes up stories about knowing dead people, and conveniently shows up to save an important meeting. The atmosphere in the room grew unbearably tense. Michael felt anger rising inside him, but also deep confusion about Daniel's motives. Mr. Smith, Hiroshi said calmly, do you have any proof of what you're claiming? I have something better than proof, Daniel smiled maliciously. I have the truth about this company. He opened the folder he was carrying and spread some documents across the table. These are the real financial records of Reynolds Construction. Michael didn't tell you the company has debts far exceeding the value of the investment you're offering. Michael quickly grabbed the papers, examining them in horror. Daniel, these numbers are wrong. Where did you get this? Are they wrong? Or did you just not want our investors to know the real state of the company? These aren't our actual numbers, Daniel. Someone manipulated this information. Oh, Michael, always so naive. The way Daniel said it made Michael realize something much more serious was happening. What did you do, Daniel? I did what was necessary to save at least part of our investments before the company sinks completely. What part of the investments? Daniel hesitated for a moment, realizing he had said too much. It doesn't matter now, Michael. What matters is these Japanese gentlemen need to know they're being deceived. Emily watched the argument with growing concern. There was something about Daniel's behavior that didn't add up. If he really wanted to protect the company, why was he sabotaging such an important meeting? Mr. Smith, she said, addressing Daniel, may I ask you a question? Go ahead. If you believe I'm lying about knowing Mrs. Akiko, how would you explain the fact that I speak Japanese fluently? There are many ways to learn a language, miss. Courses, apps, the internet. But not the way I speak. My Japanese has the specific accent of the Kyushu region where Mrs. Akiko was from. That's not something you learn from online courses. Hiroshi Yamada looked at Emily with renewed interest. She's right. Her accent really is from Kyushu. My mother kept that accent her whole life. Daniel began to look less confident. That proves nothing. She could have met anyone from that region. Mr. Smith, Emily continued, her voice growing steadier. Why are you so determined to sabotage this meeting? If we secure this investment, everyone in the company benefits, including you. I'm not sabotaging anything. I'm protecting these investors from a scam. What scam? Michael asked, his patience reaching its limit. A desperate ploy by a bankrupt company trying to get money through a ridiculous charade. That's when Emily had a revelation. She remembered several strange things she had noticed over the past few months, but had never questioned. Mr. Michael, she said calmly, do you remember those documents I typed for Mr. Smith last week? What documents? He asked me to type up some contracts. He said they were for a new project, but there were some odd things about the amounts. Daniel looked visibly nervous. What kind of odd things? Michael asked. They were equipment sales contracts from the company to a construction firm I'd never heard of, and the amounts were way below market price. Emily, you shouldn't be discussing confidential documents, Daniel said quickly. But if they were legitimate company documents, why didn't you want Mr. Michael to know? She asked innocently. Michael turned to Daniel with an expression mixing anger and disappointment. Daniel, what's going on here? Nothing's going on, Michael. This secretary is trying to deflect attention from her own questionable behavior by inventing conspiracy theories. Dear listener, if you're enjoying the story, don't forget to like and especially subscribe to the channel. It really helps us newcomers. Now, continuing. What conspiracy theories? Hiroshi Yamada asked, now fully interested in the discussion. Mr. Yamada, Emily said, looking directly at him. For the past 3 months, I've noticed several irregularities in the documents Mr. Smith asks me to process. I always thought it was odd, but since I'm just the secretary, I never questioned it. What kind of irregularities? Equipment sales to shell companies, money transfers to accounts I couldn't identify, contracts with suppliers I've never seen at the company. Michael felt the ground disappearing beneath his feet again, but for a completely different reason now. Daniel, is this true? Michael, are you really going to believe an employee who admitted to lying on her own resume? Actually, Emily said, reaching for her bag again, I can prove what I'm saying. She pulled a small flash drive from the inner pocket of her purse. What's that? Michael asked. Copies of every document I typed for Mr. Smith over the past 6 months. I always backed everything up as a safety measure. Daniel turned pale. You had no right to copy confidential documents. Yes, she did, Michael said firmly. It's part of a secretary's job to back up all important company documents. Emily plugged the flash drive into the laptop on the table and began opening files. Look at this one, she pointed to the screen. Sale of 2 backhoes to Modern Construction LLC for $40,000 each. The market value for that equipment is at least $200,000 each. And here, she opened another file, a transfer of $300,000 to an account I couldn't find any information on. Michael examined the documents with growing horror. Daniel, what does this mean? It means I was trying to salvage at least something before the company went completely under, Daniel finally confessed, realizing there was no way to deny it anymore. Salvage for who? For us, Michael. Don't you get it? The company's been broke for months. These Japanese investors would never have put money in if they knew the truth. At least this way we could recover some cash before everything went down the drain. You were stealing from the company, Michael said, incredulous. I was being realistic. You were living in a fantasy world, thinking you could save the company with a miracle investment. Hiroshi Yamada watched the argument with great interest. Ken and Masao whispered to each other in Japanese. Mr. Yamada, Emily said in Japanese. I know this situation is very confusing, but Mr. Michael knew nothing about it. He's an honest person who was being deceived by his own partner. How can I be sure of that? Hiroshi asked, also in Japanese. Because I've worked here for 3 years and I know his character. Mr. Michael often works late into the night trying to find ways to keep everyone employed. He genuinely cares about the people who work here. Michael listened to the conversation in Japanese without understanding a word, but judging by the investors' expressions, Emily was defending him. What are you telling them, Emily? I'm explaining that you weren't aware of Mr. Smith's actions. And do they believe it? I think so, but there's something else I need to say. What? Emily took a deep breath before continuing. Mr. Michael, there's something else I need to confess. Something else? He asked, already dreading what might come next. I didn't tell you everything about my personal situation. What personal situation? I'm pregnant. The silence that followed was absolute. Michael blinked several times, trying to process this new information. Pregnant? Yes, sir. 3 months. And the father? Emily lowered her eyes, clearly embarrassed. He left me when he found out I was just a secretary. He said he didn't want to commit to someone with no future. Michael felt a pang in his heart. Over the 3 years Emily had worked for him, he developed feelings for her but never had the courage to show them because of their social differences and professional relationship. That's why you were so afraid of losing your job, he said, finally understanding. Yes, without this job I can't support my baby. Daniel seized the moment of vulnerability to attack again. See? She's lying about everything to keep her job. First she claims she speaks Japanese, then makes up stories about knowing dead people, and now comes with this pregnancy story. I'm not lying about anything, Emily said firmly, and I can prove the pregnancy too, if necessary. That won't be necessary, Michael said, realizing how exposed and vulnerable she must feel. Hiroshi Yamada stood up and walked to the window, looking down at the city below. He stood there for a few minutes, thinking, while everyone in the room waited in silence. Finally, he turned and spoke. Mr. Reynolds, I'd like to make a proposal. I'm listening. First, I want Mr. Smith removed from this meeting and this company immediately. We don't do business with dishonest people. Daniel opened his mouth to protest, but Michael cut him off. You can go, Daniel. Consider our partnership officially dissolved. You'll regret this, Michael, Daniel said, before leaving, slamming the door. Second, Hiroshi continued, we want Ms. Emily to be promoted to International Relations Manager of the company. Michael was surprised, but she's honest, courageous, and speaks our language perfectly. Besides, she cared for my mother with love and dedication. That means more to me than any university degree. Mr. Yamada, I'd be honored, Emily said in Japanese, but I must confess I still have much to learn about business. We all always have something to learn, he smiled, and we can help you with that. What about the investment? Michael asked, still hesitant. About that, Hiroshi exchanged a glance with the other investors. We've decided to increase the original investment amount. Increase? Yes. But with a few conditions. What conditions? First condition, Ms. Emily must accept a scholarship in Japan to specialize in international business. The program lasts 2 years. Emily felt her heart race. A scholarship in Japan was more than she had ever dreamed of. But what about the baby? She asked. The baby can go with you. We'll provide all the necessary support for student mothers. And the second condition? Michael asked. The second condition is that you agree to let us assign a financial consultant to help completely restructure the company's finances. We want to make sure there are no more surprises like Mr. Smith's. Michael nodded immediately. I accept all the conditions. And the third condition, Hiroshi continued, is a personal one of mine. What is it? I want Miss Emily to tell me everything about my mother's last years of life. Every detail, every conversation, every moment they spent together. Emily smiled, tears in her eyes. It would be my pleasure, Mr. Yamada. Mrs. Akiko had so many stories to tell about her childhood in Japan. She even taught me how to make some traditional Japanese dishes. She cooked every Sunday, and she always made food for many people, even though she lived alone. She said cooking for just one person made the house feel too sad. Hiroshi smiled, clearly moved. She always did that ever since I was a child. On Sundays, our house was full of friends and neighbors. In the days following the meeting, many things changed in Michael and Emily's lives. Daniel was officially removed from the company, and a lawyer was hired to reverse all the fraudulent sales he had made. Michael discovered that the shell companies that had bought the equipment at low prices were actually real businesses controlled by Daniel, who resold the equipment at market price and pocketed the difference. How did you suspect him? Michael asked Emily during one of their many meetings to reorganize the company. There were several little things that didn't add up, she explained. He always asked me to type important documents when you weren't in the office. And sometimes when I asked questions about procedures, he'd get nervous and say I didn't need to understand, just type. Why didn't you ever tell me? Because I was afraid, Mr. Michael. I was already lying about my qualifications, And I worried that if I asked too many questions, you'd find out I wasn't as qualified as I should be. Emily, you saved this company. If it weren't for you, I'd never have discovered what Daniel was doing. And if it weren't for you, I'd never have had the chance to use the Japanese Mrs. Akiko taught me. In the weeks that followed, Hiroshi Yamada spent a lot of time at the company, not just overseeing the investments, but also talking at length with Emily about his mother. She talked about you every day, Emily shared during one of their conversations. She said you were a very smart boy and that one day you'd become an important man. But she also said she was afraid you might have forgotten her. I never forgot, Hiroshi said sadly. I spent years trying to find her, but she changed her name when she remarried in the United States and I lost track. She never remarried, Mr. Yamada. What? Mrs. Akiko lived alone. I think there was some confusion in the paperwork. She always said she remained a widow because she believed you'd reunite one day. Hiroshi fell silent for a long time, processing this. So all these years, while I thought she had moved on with her life, she was waiting for me? Yes, and I think she knew it would happen through me. In her final months, she always said I should use Japanese for something important, as a way to honor the friendship we had. The preparations for Emily's trip to Japan began immediately. She was excited but also scared at the idea of leaving the United States for the first time in her life. What if I can't keep up with my studies? She asked Michael during one of their planning meetings. You'll manage, Emily. You're one of the smartest people I know. But I've never studied at a university. I don't know if I'm prepared for this. You learned Japanese from an elderly woman without books or formal methods. If you could do that, you can do anything. A week before the trip, Emily received an unexpected visitor at home. It was an elegant, gray-haired woman she didn't recognize. Are you Emily Parker? The woman asked. Yes, ma'am. How can I help you? My name is Elizabeth Reynolds. I'm Michael's mother. Emily's heart raced. Michael's mother. She had heard about her but had never met her in person. Mrs. Elizabeth, please come in. Michael never told me you were coming. Michael doesn't know I'm here, Elizabeth said, sitting in Emily's modest living room. I wanted to talk to you in person before your trip. About what? About my son. Emily was confused. I don't understand, ma'am. Emily, I know Michael has feelings for you. I don't know what you're talking about. A mother always notices these things, and from what I see, you have feelings for him too. Emily lowered her eyes, unsure how to respond. Don't worry, dear. I didn't come here to cause trouble. I came to tell you a story. What story? The story of how I met Michael's father. Elizabeth looked out the window of the small house as if reliving old memories. When I was young, I worked as a secretary at an accounting firm. Michael's father was the head accountant. I came from a humble family. He came from a wealthy one. For years, we worked together without anything happening. What changed? One day, the company faced a serious financial crisis. The senior accountant was embezzling money, and the company was about to go under. I had noticed some irregularities in the documents but was afraid to say anything. Emily felt a chill in her stomach. The story sounded so much like what had happened recently. What did you do? I finally found the courage to tell Michael's father what I had discovered. Together we exposed the corrupt accountant and saved the company. And you got together after that? Not right away. He thought our social differences were an insurmountable obstacle, and I thought he could never be interested in a simple secretary. But you married. Yes, but only after many unnecessary years of suffering. Years we could have been happy together, but wasted because of pride and fear. Elizabeth took Emily's hand. I don't want you and Michael to make the same mistake his father and I did. But Mrs. Elizabeth, I'm pregnant with another man's child, and now I'm going to Japan for 2 years. So what? Michael has already shown he accepts your pregnancy, and 2 years pass quickly when you have something to look forward to. Do you really think he cares about me? I'm certain of it, but he's as proud as his father and afraid to admit his feelings. And I'm afraid he only feels obligated to take care of me because of the situation. That's why your trip to Japan could be a blessing. 2 years apart will help you both understand what you truly feel for each other. That night, Emily couldn't sleep, thinking about everything Elizabeth had told her. Did Michael really have feelings for her? And more importantly, what did she feel for him? The next day, she decided to have an honest conversation with Michael. "Mr. Michael, may I speak with you privately?" "Of course, Emily. What's the matter?" "I want to thank you for everything you've done for me, for the promotion, for the scholarship opportunity, for defending me in the meeting." "You don't need to thank me, Emily. You deserve all that, and much more. But I want you to know that I know you're not obligated to do any of this. I'm not doing it out of obligation." "Then why?" Michael hesitated for a moment, as if deciding how much he could reveal. "Because I care about you, Emily. Much more than I should." "What do you mean by that?" "I mean that over these 3 years you've become very important to me, not just as an employee, but as a person." Emily felt her heart race. "Mr. Michael, I know it's not appropriate. I know I'm your boss, and there's a social difference between us, but I can't deny what I feel. And what do you feel?" "I've fallen in love with you, Emily, for your intelligence, your dedication, your honesty, for everything you are." Tears began to stream down Emily's face. "I've fallen for you too," she whispered. Michael moved closer to her but stopped short of touching her. "But you're pregnant with another man's child and leaving for Japan." "I know. And maybe that's for the best." "Why?" "Because it will give us time to think, to be sure of what we truly feel. I don't want you to feel obligated to take care of me and my baby." "I don't feel obligated, Emily. But how can we be sure? Everything happened so fast. Maybe 2 years apart will help us understand if what we feel is real." Michael nodded, though reluctantly. "You're right, but I want you to know I'll wait for you. And I want you to know I'll miss you every day." On the eve of her trip, the company organized a small farewell party for Emily. All the employees were there, along with Hiroshi Yamada and the other Japanese investors. "Emily," Hiroshi said during the party, "I want you to know my mother would be very proud to learn the young woman she taught Japanese is going to study in her country." "I think she always knew this would happen," Emily replied. "In the weeks before she passed, she always said I had a special destiny tied to Japan." "Do you believe that?" "I do now. Meeting you wasn't a coincidence. It was the last gift Mrs. Akiko gave me." During the party, Michael officially introduced Emily in her new role as International Relations Manager. "I know some of you may wonder how a secretary could be promoted so quickly," he told the employees. "But the truth is, Emily was always much more than a secretary. She just never had the chance to show her full potential." "Not only that," he continued, "she saved this company by uncovering the corruption happening right under our noses. We all owe our job security to her." The employees applauded, and many came forward to thank Emily personally. "Did you know Mr. Smith was stealing from the company?" asked Jennifer, one of the senior employees. "I suspected something was wrong, but I wasn't sure," Emily answered honestly. "And I was afraid of being mistaken." "Why did you decide to speak up during the meeting with the Japanese?" "Because I saw they were questioning Mr. Michael's honesty, and I knew he didn't deserve that. So I took the risk and shared what I'd noticed." "You risked your own job to protect the boss. I'd risk far more than that to protect people who care about me." The next morning, Michael took Emily to the airport. She was nervous, carrying only a small suitcase and the bag with the photos of Mrs. Akiko. "Are you sure you're not forgetting anything?" Michael asked as he drove. "I'm sure, after all, I'll only be gone for 2 years," she said, trying to sound cheerful. 2 years is a long time, Emily. It'll go by fast, and besides, with the internet now, we can talk whenever we want." "It won't be the same." "I know, but it'll have to be enough." At the airport, Hiroshi Yamada was waiting for them. He was making the same trip, returning to Japan after months in the United States. "Ready to see Mrs. Akiko's country?" he asked. "I'm excited and scared at the same time," Emily admitted. "That's normal, but I'm sure you'll adjust well." "Mr. Yamada," Michael said, "I want to thank you again for everything you're doing for Emily and the company." "No need to thank me, Mr. Reynolds. This is just the beginning of a long partnership." The time for goodbyes arrived. Emily hugged Michael tightly, trying to memorize the moment. Promise you'll take care of the company while I'm away, she whispered in his ear. I promise. And you promise you'll study hard and come back even smarter. I promise. And promise you'll take good care of the baby. I promise. And promise you won't forget about me. That's one promise I could never break, she smiled through her tears. The flight to Japan took nearly 24 hours with layovers in New York and Chicago. Throughout the journey, Emily thought about how her life had completely changed in just a few weeks. 3 months ago, she was just a scared secretary, hiding her knowledge and struggling to keep a job that barely supported her. Now she was on her way to Japan to study at one of the country's best universities, 3 months pregnant, promoted to international manager, and in love with her boss, who was also in love with her. As Mrs. Akiko would say, she murmured to herself, the universe has mysterious ways of bringing the right people together at the right time. In Japan, Emily was welcomed into Hiroshi Yamada's home. He had insisted she stay with his family during her first few months until she adjusted to the country. This was the house where my mother grew up, he explained as he showed her the traditional Japanese home. My grandparents left it to her, and she left it to me. It's beautiful, Emily said, admiring the traditional architecture and carefully planned garden. My wife Yuki is eager to meet you. She's also pregnant with our first child. Really? When is the baby due? In 5 months, almost the same time as yours. Yuki Yamada turned out to be a kind and welcoming woman who spoke Portuguese reasonably well, having studied Brazilian literature in college. Hiroshi told me the whole story about you and your mother, she said to Emily during dinner. It's so moving how you found each other. I think so too. Sometimes I feel like Mrs. Akiko planned it all somehow. Maybe she did. My grandmother always said the people we love never truly leave us. They find ways to keep watching over us through others. In her first months in Japan, Emily had to adjust not only to a new country and culture, but also to university life. The international business program was intense and demanding. How are you feeling? Professor Watanabe asked during one of their classes. A little lost sometimes, Emily admitted. There's so much new information. That's normal. You're making 2 big adjustments at once, adapting to Japan and starting university. But based on your results so far, I'd say you're doing very well. Thank you, Professor. May I ask you a personal question? Of course. How did you learn Japanese so well without formal study? Emily told the professor the whole story about Mrs. Akiko and how she had learned the language by caring for her over the years. That explains your unique accent, the professor smiled. You speak Japanese with so much love. It's rare to find that in foreign students. During the evenings, Emily would talk to Michael through video calls. He always asked about her studies, the baby, and how she was adjusting. I miss you, he said during one of these conversations. I miss you too. But I'm learning so much here, Michael. Things that will really help the company when I return. Tell me. I'm learning about international negotiations, different business cultures, and how to adapt products and services for foreign markets. That will be very useful for expanding our business. Exactly what I was thinking. I already have so many ideas for when I come back. And how's the baby? Emily placed a hand on her belly, which was already showing her pregnancy. Growing. I went to the doctor yesterday and everything's normal. Have you decided on a name yet? Not yet, but I'm thinking of something meaningful in both English and Japanese. Why? Because this baby will be born in Japan but is American. I want them to be proud of both cultures. During her 5th month of pregnancy, Emily received news that made her very happy. Yuki Yamada had given birth to a healthy baby boy, and she got to witness the child's first days. He's beautiful, Emily said, holding the baby in her arms. Do you want to hold him? Yuki asked. May I? Of course. You'll need practice for when yours arrives. Cradling that tiny baby, Emily felt a deep emotion. In just a few months, she would hold her own child. What will you name him? Akiko, Hiroshi answered. After my mother. Emily's eyes filled with tears. Mrs. Akiko would be so moved. And you? Have you decided on your baby's name? I think so. If it's a boy, I want to name him Michael Akiko. Michael for the person you love, and Akiko for the one who taught you Japanese. Exactly. And if it's a girl? Still thinking. But maybe Elizabeth Akiko, in honor of Michael's mother, too. When she told Michael about the name she had chosen, he was visibly moved. You want to name the baby after me? Yes, if that's all right with you. All right. Emily, it's the greatest honor anyone's ever given me. Even though the baby isn't biologically yours, this baby may not be mine by blood, but they're already mine in my heart. If you'll let me, I want to raise them as my own. Are you sure? Absolutely, I love you, Emily. And I want to be part of this baby's life from day one. In her 7th month of pregnancy, Emily received an unexpected visitor. It was Elizabeth Reynolds, who had traveled to Japan to get to know her better and be present for the birth. Mrs. Elizabeth, Emily exclaimed in surprise. What are you doing here? I came to meet my future daughter-in-law and my grandchild, Elizabeth smiled. Daughter-in-law? Oh, Emily, you two may be in different countries, but anyone can see your soulmates. It's only a matter of time before you make it official. Elizabeth stayed in Japan for 2 weeks, long enough to meet the Yamada family and help Emily with final preparations for the birth. Hiroshi told me his mother taught you Japanese, Elizabeth said during a conversation. Yes, ma'am, Mrs. Akiko was like a grandmother to me. And now you're in her country, studying, growing, preparing to be a mother. I think that's very symbolic. In what way? In the way that sometimes we need to step away from the people we love temporarily so we can grow enough to deserve that love. Do you think I didn't deserve Michael's love before? It's not that, my dear. You two were meant for each other from the very first day, but you needed to grow to understand that and to overcome the barriers you had created in your own minds. The baby was born on a sunny spring morning, 2 days before the due date. He was a healthy boy with big, expressive eyes that reminded everyone of Emily's. He's perfect, whispered Yuki Yamada, who had accompanied Emily during the delivery. Michael Akiko Parker, Emily said, looking at her son in her arms. That's your name, my love. Hiroshi immediately called Michael in the United States to share the news. Mr. Reynolds, you are the godfather of a beautiful, healthy boy. How is Emily doing? She's fine. Tired, but very happy. And the baby? Perfect. He has his mother's eyes and is already sleeping peacefully. When can I talk to her? In a few hours, once she's had some rest. When he finally spoke to Emily, Michael was visibly emotional. How are you feeling? Tired, but happy. He's beautiful, Michael. I'm sure he is. The son of the most beautiful woman I know could only be beautiful too. Do you want to see him? More than anything in the world. Emily turned the camera to show the baby sleeping in the crib next to her hospital bed. This is Michael Akiko Parker, she said softly. Michael stayed silent for a few moments, clearly moved. Thank you, he finally said. For what? For giving me the honor of lending him my name. Thank you for agreeing to be his father. I'm not agreeing to be his father, Emily. I already am his father, in my heart, where it matters most. The months that followed were intense for Emily. Balancing her studies with caring for a newborn wasn't easy, but she had the support of the Yamada family and other American mothers living in Japan. How do you manage to study with a little baby? Asked a classmate. I sleep little and make the most of every moment he's asleep, Emily answered honestly. But it's worth it. I want to give him the best future possible. By 6 months old, little Michael was already smiling and babbling sounds that seemed like a mix of English and Japanese. He'll be bilingual from an early age, observed Yuki Yamada. I hope so. I want him to be proud of his American roots but also feel at home anywhere in the world. During this time, Emily developed a special project as part of her studies. It was a business plan for a cultural exchange company between the United States and Japan, focused on language education and professional exchange. Your idea is very interesting, said Professor Tanaka during the project presentation. Have you thought about implementing it in practice? Actually, yes. When I return to the United States, I'd like to propose this as an extension of the business at the company where I work. Do you think they'd be interested? I'm sure they would, especially considering we already have a strong partnership with Japanese investors. Emily's project received the highest marks in the class and was selected for presentation at an international business conference. You have a natural talent for this, Professor Watanabe said after the presentation. Have you considered further studies, maybe a master's degree? For now, I want to focus on applying what I've learned. But who knows in the future? The doors here will always be open for you. As her return to the United States approached, Emily felt a mix of anxiety and excitement. She was eager to see Michael again and show him how much little Michael had grown, but also a little nervous about resuming life back home. "Will you miss us?" Yuki asked during one of their last conversations. "So much. You've become my family here. And you've become ours too. You'll always have a place in this home. Thank you for everything, Yuki. For welcoming me, for helping me with the baby, for teaching me so much about Japanese culture. Thank you for teaching me about American culture, and for being such a special friend." Hiroshi Yamada insisted on accompanying Emily back to the United States. "It's not necessary, Mr. Yamada," she said. "I can travel alone. A mother with a 1-year-old shouldn't make such a long trip by herself. Besides, I have some business to attend to in the US anyway." "Are you sure?" "Absolutely. And I want to be there when you and Michael reunite." The return trip took over 24 hours, but little Michael behaved perfectly the entire flight. He was used to traveling, as Emily had taken him to visit various Japanese cities during her studies. At the New York airport, Michael was waiting with a bouquet of flowers and a smile that lit up his entire face. "Emily," he called out as soon as he saw her coming through the arrivals area. "Michael!" She ran toward him, carrying the baby in her arms. The hug they shared lasted several minutes, 2 years of longing condensed into that single moment. "How are you?" he asked, cupping her face in his hands. "Good. Really good. And you?" "Now I'm perfect." "And this," she said, turning to the baby, "is Michael Akiko Parker." The baby looked at Michael curiously, without fear, as if he already knew him. "Can I hold him?" Michael asked timidly. "Of course. You're his father." When Michael took the baby into his arms, little Michael smiled and babbled something that sounded like, "Daddy." "Did he just say Daddy?" Michael asked, stunned. "It might have been a coincidence," Emily smiled. "But he's seen your picture every day for the past 2 years. You showed him my picture. Every day. I'd say, 'This is your daddy, who's waiting for us in the US.'" Michael felt his eyes fill with tears. "I love you both," he said, "more than I ever thought possible. And we love you too." The first week back in the US was intense. Emily had to readjust to the country, introduce little Michael to all the employees at the company, and start implementing everything she'd learned in Japan. "How was studying there?" asked Jennifer, the longtime employee who had grown closest to Emily. "Incredible. I learned so much about business, about culture, about myself. And what was it like raising a baby alone in another country? It wasn't easy, but I had a lot of support. The family who took me in was wonderful." "And now? What's going to happen between you and the boss?" Emily smiled mysteriously. "You'll find out soon." In fact, Michael had planned a surprise for Emily. On Friday of her first week back, he called her to a special meeting. "What's it about?" she asked. "You'll find out when you get to the conference room." When Emily entered the room, she found all the company employees gathered, along with Hiroshi Yamada and Elizabeth Reynolds. "What's going on here?" she asked, confused. "Emily Parker," Michael said, pulling a small box from his pocket. "During the 2 years you were away, I realized I can't live without you. I realized that you and little Michael are the family I've always dreamed of having." He knelt before her, opening the box to reveal a simple but elegant ring. "Will you marry me?" Emily stood frozen for a few seconds, unable to respond. "Michael," she whispered, "I know we're not from the same social world. I know you have a child from another man. I know there are obstacles, but I also know I love you, and you love me. And I know that together we can overcome anything." "But what will people say?" Let them say whatever they want. What matters is how we feel. Emily looked around the room, seeing the smiling faces of all the employees she had come to love like family. "Yes," she finally said. "I accept your marriage proposal." The joyful shout that echoed through the room was deafening. Everyone applauded, and some employees even cried with emotion. "But I have one condition," Emily said when the noise died down. "What is it?" "I want you to officially adopt little Michael. I want him to have your last name." "I was already planning that," Michael smiled. "Michael Akiko Parker Reynolds." "Perfect." The wedding was set for 3 months later, enough time to organize a simple yet meaningful ceremony. Emily insisted on keeping it modest, but Michael argued she deserved a celebration worthy of her. "It doesn't have to be extravagant," she said. "I just want it to be special." "To me, any wedding with you would be special, even if it were at the courthouse," Michael replied. "But I want it to be an unforgettable day." During the preparations, Elizabeth Reynolds became Emily's invaluable ally. "Are you nervous?" Elizabeth asked as they picked out the wedding dress. "A little. Sometimes I still can't believe all this is happening." "Believe it, dear. You deserve all this happiness. Even though I'm a former secretary with no wealthy family and a child who isn't Michael's. Especially because of all that. You won my son's heart by being exactly who you are. That's far more valuable than any money or social status." The ceremony took place in a small church downtown, decorated with simple yet elegant flowers. Hiroshi Yamada insisted on paying for the floral arrangements, saying it was his way of honoring his mother's memory. "Mrs. Akiko would have been so happy to see this day," he told Emily before the ceremony. "I feel like she's here with us," Emily replied, "as if she planned all this from the beginning." "Maybe she did." Little Michael, now almost 2 years old, served as the ring bearer, carrying the rings on a small cushion embroidered by his grandmother Elizabeth. When it came time for the vows, Michael surprised everyone by speaking in Japanese. "Watashi wa anata wo aishitimasu, Emily," he said. "That means I love you in the language Mrs. Akiko taught you." "You learned Japanese?" Emily asked, moved. "I started when you were in Japan. I wanted to speak to you in the language that's special to you." "Watashi mo anata wo aishitimasu," Emily replied. "I love you too." The reception was held in the company's own hall, decorated by employees who insisted on organizing everything as a gift for the couple. "I never imagined I'd be dancing my wedding waltz in the same place where I once worked as a secretary," Emily said during their first dance. "And I never imagined I'd find the love of my life in my own company," Michael replied. "We're a walking cliché," she laughed. "The best kind of cliché." During the reception, Hiroshi Yamada gave an emotional speech. 2 years ago, I came to the United States just to make a financial investment. I never expected to find the young woman who cared for my mother in her final years, and I certainly never imagined I'd witness a love story as beautiful as Michael and Emily's." He paused, clearly moved. "My mother always said true love knows no social, cultural, or economic barriers. She believed that when two people truly love each other, the universe conspires to bring them together. Today, seeing you two, I finally understand what she meant." After the wedding, Michael finalized little Michael's adoption, making him legally his son. The courthouse ceremony was small, with only Elizabeth and Hiroshi as witnesses. "From today onward, you're officially my son," Michael told the boy, now 2.5. "Daddy," the boy replied clearly, making everyone laugh. "He's always known you're his father," Emily observed. "To him, it's just a formality." In the months following their marriage, Emily implemented her cultural exchange project between the United States and Japan. The company created a dedicated division for it, and she became the director of the program. "How's the project going?" Michael asked during a board meeting. "Better than we expected. We already have 15 American students studying in Japan and 10 Japanese interns training here at the company. And financially, the program isn't just paying for itself, it's turning a profit. Japanese companies are very interested in hiring professionals who understand both cultures." "That's incredible, Emily. There's more. We received a proposal to expand the program to other Asian countries." Really? Yes, South Korea and China have also shown interest in the model. A year after their wedding, Emily discovered she was pregnant again. This time, the baby would truly be Michael's. "How do you feel about the news?" Michael asked. Happy, but a little worried. Worried about what? About little Michael. I don't want him to feel left out when the baby comes. He won't feel left out, Emily. To me, he's my firstborn, no matter who his biological father is. Are you sure? Absolutely. And besides, he'll love having a little brother or sister. When they told little Michael he was going to be a big brother, his reaction was priceless. "Baby?" he asked, placing his tiny hand on his mother's belly. "Yes, sweetheart. A baby is growing in here." "My baby?" "Your little brother or sister." "I take care, baby," he said seriously, making Michael and Emily laugh. Emily's second pregnancy was much smoother than the first. She was in her own country, surrounded by family and friends, and didn't have to worry about university studies. "This time I can really enjoy every moment," she told Elizabeth during lunch. "And is it different?" "Very. The first time, I was alone in another country, trying to prove I could handle everything. Now I have Michael by my side and I feel so much more secure." "And how's married life?" "Better than I ever imagined it could be. Michael is a wonderful husband and an amazing father to little Michael. Are you thinking of having more children after this one?" "Let's see how two goes first," Emily laughed. "But Michael already said he wants a big family. And you?" "I want as many children as we can raise with love and responsibility." The second baby was born on a summer morning. Another healthy, beautiful boy. This time, Michael was present for the entire birth. "What should we name him?" Michael asked, cradling their son. "How about Akiko, in honor of Mrs. Akiko?" "Akiko Reynolds. I like it. And he'll have a very special big brother to teach him all about the world." Little Michael adapted perfectly to his role as an older brother. At 3 years old, he already helped take care of the baby and felt very important. "My brother," he proudly told anyone who would listen. "He's being such a wonderful brother," Emily remarked. "He really is. And look at this. Now we have a Michael who's American with a Japanese heart, and an Akiko who's Japanese with an American heart. Our family is a bridge between two worlds. The bridge Mrs. Akiko always wanted to build." 5 years after their marriage, Reynolds Construction had completely transformed. Beyond its traditional construction business, it now had a thriving international division, a globally recognized cultural exchange program, and had expanded operations to 3 Asian countries. "You've turned our company into something I never thought possible," Michael told Emily during an annual review meeting. "We transformed," she corrected. "This was only possible because you always believed in me, and because you always had the potential for much more than being a secretary. But I'll never regret having been a secretary. It was as a secretary that I learned to observe, to organize, to take care of details. Those skills are essential for what I do today. And it was as a secretary that you saved the company from Daniel's corruption. It feels like a century ago, doesn't it? It really does. Sometimes I still can't believe how much our lives have changed." That same year, Emily received a special invitation. The Japanese university where she had studied wanted to offer her a position as a visiting professor to teach about international business and cultural exchange. "It's an incredible opportunity," Michael said when she told him about the invitation. "But it would mean spending 6 months in Japan." "So what? We can go together." "You'd leave the company for 6 months?" "For you, I'd leave the company forever. But besides that, I think it would be a great experience for the kids to learn Japanese while they're young." "You'd really do it?" "I would. In fact, I'd already been thinking about opening a company branch in Japan. This could be the perfect opportunity." The decision was made. The Reynolds family would move temporarily to Japan, where Emily would be a visiting professor, and Michael would establish the company's Asian branch. "We're going back home," Emily said to little Michael, now 7 years old. "Is Japan our home too?" "The whole world is our home, my love. Wherever we're together is our home." Their return to Japan felt like a reunion with beloved family. Hiroshi and Yuki Yamada welcomed them with celebration, and little Akiko got to know the country that shared her name. "It's like you never left," Yuki said during their first dinner together. "In part of our hearts, we really never did," Emily replied. "And now, you're bringing a new generation to know Japan." Little Michael already speaks basic Japanese, and Akiko is learning quickly. They'll grow up as true citizens of the world. During their 6 months in Japan, many things happened. Michael secured important partnerships for the company, the children became fluent in Japanese, and Emily developed an exchange program that would be implemented in universities across several countries. "You've accomplished so much in such a short time," Professor Tanaka observed. "When you have a solid foundation of love and trust in your family, anything is possible," Emily answered. "And you certainly have that." "Yes, we do. But it wasn't always this way. It took us time to understand we deserved this happiness." "What made you realize it?" "The temporary separation. Sometimes you need to step away from something to understand its true value." In their final week, before returning to the United States, the family took a special trip. They visited Mrs. Akiko's grave in the Springfield Cemetery, which Hiroshi had renovated and decorated with a Japanese garden. "Thank you, Mrs. Akiko," Emily said, kneeling before the grave, "for teaching me Japanese, for teaching me about love, for showing me that the right people always find a way to each other." Little Michael, now understanding the meaning of the visit better, placed a flower on the grave. "Thank you, Great-Grandma Akiko, for taking care of Mommy," he said in Japanese. "Great-Grandma?" Michael asked, surprised. "She took care of Mommy like a grandma, so she's my great-grandma," the boy explained with the simple logic of children. "He's right," Emily smiled through tears. "Mrs. Akiko will always be part of our family." Back in the United States, the family's life continued happily and prosperously. The company grew steadily, the exchange program expanded to new countries, and the children grew up bilingual and multicultural. "Sometimes I'm afraid that so much happiness can't be real," Emily confessed to Michael one evening. "Why do you think that?" "Because 10 years ago I was just a frightened secretary, trying to hide that I spoke Japanese. It seems impossible that my life could have changed so much." "Your life changed because you always had the potential for it. You just needed opportunities to show who you really were. And what if I hadn't offered to help in that meeting?" "You would have. It was impossible for you not to." "How can you be so sure?" "Because I know your heart, Emily. You could never see someone you love suffering without trying to help." 10 years after their marriage, Michael decided to plan a special surprise for Emily. He organized an anniversary party in the same meeting room where everything had begun. "Why here?" she asked when he led her into the room. "Because this is where our love story truly started." "Our love story started long before that." "When?" "On the first day I started working here. I fell in love with you that very first day, but it took me years to admit it to myself. And I fell in love with you on the second day." "Second day? Why not the first?" "Because on the first day, I was too nervous about a new employee to pay proper attention," he laughed. "But on the second day, when you smiled at me and asked if I wanted coffee, I knew I was lost." "Why did you never say anything?" "For the same reason you never did. Fear, pride, social differences." "How many years did we waste because of those silly things?" "We didn't waste anything, Emily. Every year we spent prepared us to be the people we are today. If we had been together sooner, maybe we wouldn't have valued what we have enough." The party brought together all the company's employees, including some who had already retired, as well as Hiroshi and Yuki Yamada, who had traveled all the way from Japan for the occasion. 10 years ago, Michael said during his toast, "A brave secretary saved my company and my life. Today, that same woman is my wife, my partner, my best friend, and the mother of my children." "And 10 years ago," Emily replied, "a generous man gave me the chance to show who I really was. Today, that same man is my husband, my partner, and the love of my life." "To Emily and Michael," shouted Hiroshi Yamada, raising his glass. "To Emily and Michael," echoed everyone present. That night, after the party, Michael and Emily walked through the empty office, reminiscing about the most important moments of their story. Do you remember how desperate you were that day? Emily asked as they passed the old meeting room. I remember perfectly. I thought it was the end of everything. And it was. The end of your life as a bachelor. The end of the company as it was before. The end of so many things. But it was also the beginning of all the good we have today. Exactly. Sometimes what seems like a crisis is really an opportunity in disguise. They stopped in front of the desk where Emily had worked as a secretary for 3 years. Do you know what moves me most about this whole story? Michael asked. What? Knowing that Mrs. Akiko never met you in person, but somehow she knew you would be special. She spent years of her life teaching you Japanese, not knowing exactly what it would be for, but knowing it would be important. She always said she was preparing me for something great. At the time, I thought it was just the kindness of a lonely woman. Now I understand she really was preparing me for all of this. And what are we preparing our children for? To be bridges between worlds just as she wanted, to be people who understand that love knows no borders, nationalities, or social classes. Do you think we've succeeded? Look at them. Little Michael speaks 3 languages, has friends from various nationalities, and treats everyone with respect, regardless of their background. Akiko, even though she's young, already shows the same openness to the world. And what if they face prejudice for being the children of a former secretary? Then they'll face it with their heads held high, knowing a person's worth isn't in their origin but in their character. 20 years after that first meeting with the Japanese investors, Emily was sitting at her desk as a director when she received a special call. Hello? Ms. Emily, this is Hiroshi Yamada. Mr. Yamada, what a wonderful surprise. How are you? Very well, thank you. I'm calling with special news. What news? My son, Akiko Yamada Jr., just graduated with a degree in international business from the university where you studied. And do you know what his thesis was about? I can't imagine. Cultural exchange as a tool for business development, the Reynolds-Yamada case. Really? Emily was moved. Yes. He studied our entire partnership from the first day until now, and his conclusion is that our model should be replicated in other countries. That's wonderful, Mr. Yamada, but the best part is yet to come. He wants to propose expanding the program to all of Latin America, and he wants you to be the executive director of the project. Emily fell silent for a moment, processing the magnitude of the proposal. That would mean... It would mean you'd oversee exchange programs in 15 countries. You'd be based in the United States, but travel constantly. I need to talk to Michael about this. Of course, but we've already spoken with him informally, and he's very excited about the idea. You've already talked to Michael? Yes. In fact, the whole idea came from him. He was the one who suggested you'd be the perfect person to lead a project of this scale. When Michael came home that night, he found Emily still processing the conversation with Hiroshi. Do you really believe I can lead a project this big? She asked. Emily, you turned a local construction company into an international corporation. You created an exchange program that's a global reference. Why wouldn't you be able to lead something even bigger? Because sometimes I still feel like that scared secretary from 20 years ago. And do you know what I see when I look at you? What? I see the bravest woman I know. Someone who risked everything to save a company. Someone who faced motherhood alone in a foreign country. Someone who built bridges between cultures and changed lives. Even after all these years, you still know how to make me feel special. Because you are special, Emily. You always have been. The decision was made. Emily would lead the expansion of the exchange program across Latin America. It would be the biggest professional challenge of her life, but also the chance to impact thousands of young lives. Are you sure you can manage the company and still support this project? She asked Michael. Absolutely. Besides, little Michael is 15 now and wants to pursue a career in international business. He can start learning by helping with the project. And Akiko? Akiko is 12 and loves languages. She can help with translations and intercultural communication. So we're turning this into a family project? Why not? After all, that's how it all began. In the following months, the project took shape quickly. Little Michael, now a mature and trilingual teenager, proved to be a valuable assistant in coordinating activities with kids his age. "Mom," he said during a planning meeting, "can I suggest something?" "Of course, sweetheart. What if we create a special program for kids like me who come from multicultural families? They could serve as mentors for other young people going on exchange programs for the first time." "That's a brilliant idea," Michael commented. "Young people who've already lived multicultural experiences can really help others adapt. And Akiko can lead the digital communications side," little Michael continued. "He's really good with technology and social media." "Do you two really want to get involved in the project?" Emily asked. "We do," they answered in unison. "Then let's make this a true family project." The official launch of the expanded program took place in New York, with representatives from 15 Latin American countries in attendance. Emily, now 42, gave the keynote speech at the event. 25 years ago, she began, a young secretary from rural Pennsylvania learned Japanese while caring for an elderly lady. She never imagined that knowledge would change her life and the lives of so many others. The audience listened intently. Today, thousands of young people across Latin America will have the opportunity to learn not just languages, but cultures, ways of thinking, ways of living. There'll be bridges between worlds, just as Mrs. Akiko Yamada once taught me to be. When she finished her speech, the applause was warm and prolonged. At the end of the event, a journalist approached for an interview. "Mrs. Reynolds, what's the secret to your success story?" "There's no secret," Emily replied. "Just people who believed in me when I didn't believe in myself. Just opportunities I had the courage to take. And just a lot of hard work." "And what's your message for young people starting their careers?" "My message is, never underestimate your own potential. Never let others define your limits. And always have the courage to offer help when someone needs it. Even if it means stepping out of your comfort zone. Especially if it means stepping out of your comfort zone. The best things in life happen when we dare to take risks." "Is there anything you'd do differently if you could go back in time?" Emily thought for a moment before answering. "Maybe I'd have had the courage to reveal I spoke Japanese from my first day at work. Maybe I'd have been more honest about my feelings for Michael from the start. But then again, maybe everything happened exactly as it was supposed to. Why? Because sometimes we need to go through hardships to appreciate our achievements. Sometimes we need to get lost to find our true path." 5 years after the expanded program's launch, Emily received recognition she'd never imagined. She was nominated for an honorary medal from the Japanese government for her contributions to cultural exchange between Japan and Latin America. "I don't deserve this," she told Michael when she heard the news. "You deserve this and so much more, he replied. "How many lives have you changed with your work? It's not just my work, it's our work. Your company, your vision, your support. But it was your courage that started it all." The award ceremony took place in Tokyo, with the entire Reynolds and Yamada families in attendance. Little Michael, now 20 and a graduate in international relations, served as the ceremony's official interpreter. "Mom," he said, as they prepared to enter the hall, "I want you to know how proud I am to be your son. Even though I'm not your biological mother, you're my mother in every way that matters. And more than that, you're my role model. Thank you, my love. And Mom, yes, I have some news." "What news?" "I've been accepted into the master's program at the university where you studied in Japan. I want to specialize in educational exchange." "Really?" Emily was moved. "Yes. And I want to continue the work you started. I want this program to reach every country in the world. I'm sure you'll achieve that and much more." During the ceremony, as Emily received the medal, she remembered Mrs. Akiko and how it all began. "This medal isn't just mine," she said in her acceptance speech. "It belongs to a Japanese woman who dedicated her final years to teaching her language and culture to a young American girl. It belongs to a businessman who had the courage to trust a frightened secretary. It belongs to a family who welcomed me as their own. And it belongs to all the young people who dared to step out of their comfort zones to explore the world." When they returned to the United States, the family's life continued to thrive happily. Little Michael went to Japan for his master's degree, following in his mother's footsteps. Akiko, now 17, already spoke 4 languages and wanted to study international journalism. "Our family has turned into a little UN," Michael joked during dinners. "And I couldn't be prouder of that," Emily would reply. One evening, as they looked through old family photo albums, Michael and Emily paused at a picture from 20 years earlier, her pregnant in Japan, smiling shyly at the camera. "Can you believe everything that's happened since this photo?" Michael asked. "Sometimes I can't. It feels like another life." It was another life. We were different people, were we? You were a scared young woman trying to prove your worth. I was an arrogant businessman full of prejudices. Now we're better people. What changed us? Love. Love forced us to grow, to be better, to overcome our fears and biases. And the children. They taught us that family isn't defined by blood but by love and dedication. Do you regret anything? I regret taking so long to realize you were the love of my life. I regret not having the courage to say I loved you much sooner. And I regret hiding who I truly was for so long. But maybe everything happened at the right time. How so? If we'd gotten together earlier, maybe we wouldn't have valued this happiness so much. Maybe we wouldn't have fought so hard to deserve what we have. That night before bed, Emily looked out the bedroom window and thought of Mrs. Akiko. 25 years after her passing, she still felt the warm presence of the woman who had changed her life. "Thank you," she whispered to the stars. "Thank you for teaching me that love is the strongest bridge between different worlds. Thank you for preparing me for a life I never dreamed possible." And in that moment she knew. Somewhere Mrs. Akiko was smiling, proud of the young woman who had become a strong, accomplished, and happy woman. 30 years after that first meeting with the Japanese investors, Emily was in her office when she received a special visit. It was little Michael, now Dr. Michael Parker Reynolds, PhD in International Relations and director of the exchange program she had created. "Mum, I have a proposal." "I'm listening." "I want to write a book about our story, about how a secretary transformed not just her own life, but the lives of thousands of others. Do you think our story is interesting enough for a book?" "Mum, our story is about courage, love, perseverance, and the transformative power of education. It's exactly the kind of story the world needs to hear today." "And what would the title be?" "The Secretary and the World's She United." "That's a good title," Emily smiled, "but on one condition." "What?" "I want you to dedicate the book to Mrs. Akiko. Without her, none of this would have been possible." "I was already planning to." The book was published 2 years later and became an international bestseller. It has been translated into 15 languages and adapted for film. Emily's story has inspired millions of people around the world to believe in their own potential. "I never imagined our story could interest so many people," Emily said during the movie premiere. "That's because it's not just our story," Michael replied. "It's the story of everyone who's ever been afraid to show who they really are. It's the story of anyone who's ever felt too small to dream big. And it's the story of how true love always finds a way to overcome any obstacle." At the movie premiere, the whole family was present. Little Michael, now married and a father of 2, brought his own children to watch their grandparents' story. Akiko, a journalism graduate and international correspondent, covered the event for a television network. "Grandma," her 6-year-old granddaughter asked Emily, "is it true you used to speak Japanese in secret?" "It's true, sweetheart." "Why?" "Because sometimes people are afraid to show their special talents. But why be afraid? Because when we're different, some people might not understand. But being different is a good thing, not a bad one. I want to learn Japanese like you. And I'll teach you, just like Mrs. Akiko taught me." During the celebration after the premiere, Hiroshi Yamada, now an elderly man with completely white hair, made a special toast. "More than 30 years ago," he said, "I came to the United States looking only for a financial investment. I found so much more than that. I found a family. I found the story of the young woman who cared for my mother, and I found proof that love knows no borders." He paused, clearly moved. "Miss Emily, you didn't just honor my mother's memory. You fulfilled the dream she always had, to build bridges between different worlds through love and education. Mr. Yamada, Emily replied, your mother planted a seed in the heart of a frightened young woman. Today that seed has grown into a forest that shelters thousands of others. And this forest will keep growing through your children, grandchildren, and all the lives you've touched. To Mrs. Akiko, Emily raised her glass, for believing that a small-town girl could change the world. To Mrs. Akiko, echoed everyone present. That night when they finally returned home, Michael and Emily sat on the porch, gazing at the stars as they had for over 20 years. Are you happy? Michael asked. Happier than I ever imagined possible. Any regrets? Just one. What? I wish Mrs. Akiko had lived to see all this, to know that the time she spent teaching me Japanese changed not just my life, but the lives of thousands of others. Maybe she is watching. Do you believe that? I believe the people we love leave such deep marks on us that they never truly leave. Mrs. Akiko lives in every Japanese word you speak, in every cultural bridge you build, in every young person you inspire. And she lives in our children too, and our grandchildren, and she'll live in all the future generations touched by this story. Michael? Yes? Thank you. For what? For having the courage to trust a frightened secretary when she needed it most. Thank you for having the courage to step forward when I needed it most. We make a good team, the best team in the world. And so, under the starry sky, they remained embraced, two hearts that had found in each other far more than love. They had found purpose, fulfillment, and the certainty that together they could overcome any challenge life brought their way. The end of the story. So what did you think of this touching story? Tell us in the comments which part touched you the most, and if you've ever had an experience similar to Emily's, when you had to show courage to reveal a hidden talent. Leave your like if this story moved you, and don't forget to subscribe to the channel so you won't miss any of our upcoming stories.